So, I did my time, went to USP Lompoc, was there for a couple years, went to Sheridan, Oregon's medium, and then I finished up my time in Herlong, which is a medium, in upstate California. And I got out 2008, October. I was out at the halfway house in South Central, working my job, doing my thing, get my life back together. I briefly ran into Edward following, after getting out, and actually ran into him, I think on a porn set. He popped in because he heard I was back out, and we linked up, and we talked a little bit, and he was like, "Oh man, we should get together." I'm like, "Man, I'm not fucking with you, man. I fucking with you. I caught a case fucking with you, man." He's like, "Oh man, it's like, yeah, Herc, I'm doing this and that," and I kind of like blew him off, and didn't really say too much to him. About a year or so later, a mutual friend that we had did time with told me that he had got sick and he died from some illness in the hospital, and that was the last I heard about him. Charley, I hadn't heard anything about. I had went on with my life, started, working on my businesses, my clothing line, my production company, focusing on getting my life together. And, like I said, I'm chilling at the house, and, I hear about this homeless guy that got shot on Skid Row, and it's Charley. And from what I understand, he had did the majority of his time in a mental institute back east. So, he wasn't, I guess, wrapped too tight. And I found out watching the news that his name wasn't really Charley Robinet Saturmin. He had some other name that I can't recall at this time, but he was actually from Cameroon, Africa. So I never knew this about him. The whole time I knew this guy, he was he had assumed somebody else's identity. He said he was from France. He said he grew up in the country. He studied martial arts with his dad, and he used to drive cars on the Autobahn, and he did all these exciting things. He was acting. He was getting into movies and commercials, and this guy was actually an African immigrant from Cameroon that did all his time in the feds under an assumed identity. The feds didn't even know that this wasn't him until after he got shot, which was, pretty crazy, because they usually, are pretty good at getting background checks on people who are running aliases. So, this guy, Charley, was actually from Cameroon, and apparently had gotten out, and after after leaving the halfway house, didn't really have anywhere to go. He was homeless. He was living on the street, and it's sad how his life ended, because he was a decent person before we caught the case, and everybody makes mistakes. I did my time. I paid my debt to society. He did his time, but it's unfortunate that after doing that much time, he died by the gun, and that's how his life ended. And I actually found out also that he was older than me. When we caught our case, I was 25. He said he was actually like 23. Come to find out, I think he was like 28, so he was actually older than what he said also. So he was pretty good at creating an image for himself. He had, fabricated a hell of a story, which, sounds like something that you would hear in a movie. And being an actor, I guess, it came natural. And even the bank incident, when we went into the bank, it was never in the plan to pistol whip anybody. But this guy took it upon himself to jump over the counter and, just bop somebody upside the head, like, hey, this is what I do. And, I looked at him, after I asked him later on, why'd you do that? And he really didn't have an answer. But it almost seemed like he was imitating something he had seen maybe in a movie, because in every movie, for whatever reason, they always show a bank robber hitting somebody upside the head, like it creates something. I mean, I don't know why you got to hit somebody upside the head. You're already taking the money. Nobody, they don't have a pistol behind there. So, I mean, it's uncalled for, even though you're committing an act that's not positive to begin with, but, you don't necessarily have to bop somebody upside the head. But he did it, and, like I said, I think he, in his mind, had just, he was like almost maybe living as two different people. And in one instance, he was Charley Robinet Saturmin, and then another, he was this guy from Africa who was, you know, trying to recreate himself. And that's what he did. It just didn't work out, you know, as he planned, because like his goal was to be Robert De Niro. I mean, like I said, the guy, you used to go to his acting classes, and you know, he said he was working in a play, and I'd never seen the play. You know, I'd never seen his acting classes, but I know he was, you know, taking them because I've seen him practicing some acting, some dialogue with his roommates, you know, a couple times when I came over. So I know that was legit, but you know, to get out and not have any family, any friends, you know, come to your aid or to try to help you. And even when we got locked up, he never mentioned any family. You know, I guess right now there's a lawsuit against the LAPD for $20 million by his family that he has that lived in Boston. You know, I never knew he had a family in Boston. You know, when my girl used to come visit, we used to say, do you want anybody to come visit? Do you have anybody you need her to contact? And he would say no. He's like, I don't want my family to know about this. I don't want to shame them. You know, he was pretty embarrassed having got caught up in the situation. And I know he was embarrassed because he felt guilty about having told when he should have kept his mouth shut. You know, which it wouldn't have really made a big difference to some degree, but it would have made a difference as far as, you know, his integrity and him taking that deal for 7 rather than, you know, going to trial and getting strung out. I mean, he could have been home, and he did almost double what he should have done, you know, had he took the deal. But you know, I thought that it was just you know, something the public needed to know about Charley as far as a little background. And you know, he was a good person, but at the same time, he was very adamant. He wasn't the type of person, if he believed in something, he wasn't gonna back down. He wasn't gonna let you bully him. You know, he wasn't a punk by any means. I mean, you know, it wasn't like he was gonna run up and beat his ass, because he knew how to throw them hands, and he you know, he was pretty bullheaded. You know, he had a certain way he was gonna do things. You know, when we told him, hey man, you know, this is what you're looking at, this is what's going on, he didn't listen. You know, he had to do it his way. And you know, he bumped heads a few times with different people, but never had any physical confrontations that I've seen. But he was a hard person to live with while incarcerated. You know, he went through quite a few cellmates when I was there with him at holding. So, you know, for him to have done his time at a mental facility, you know, it says a lot about how he diminished mentally, or maybe he was already somewhat having mental issues that just came out more when he got locked up, because, you know, prison does things to certain people. It can make you crazy, and it can break you, or it can make you stronger. And you know, it seems like, from what happened, it sounds like it broke him. You know, it kind of, you know, it took all the life out of him. And you know, he was living on Skid Row. They said going by Africa, and you know, just on the curb, man. And you know, I didn't have the opportunity to reach out to him, or to, you know, I had already at that point got over the fact that he told on me. It's old. I mean, what could I do to him that he hadn't already done to himself? I mean, he told and felt bad about it, and took an additional 7 years because he felt bad about it. So it's just, it is what it is. But yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to try to, like, maybe you know, maybe help him get a job, or maybe just, you know, give him some little bit of inspiration, or just a little hope, you know, that, you know, I got out and you know, busted my ass, and I didn't have any visitors either while I was in prison, and I made something for myself. So you know, things happen, and you know, I know there's going to be other media outlets that's going to say different things, but you know, nobody knew him like I did. And even though I didn't know him that well, I knew him more than a lot of the people on Skid Row did, you know, and a lot more than what a lot of these journalists that are putting out information claim to know. I felt I was obligated to share with you the Charley Robinet I knew as a man, not the homeless guy that was shot by LAPD. I felt that we had to give you the exclusive that can only be heard from Prison Talk, also Fresh Out. I'm out.